Hi everybody, I'm Joe Cochran and welcome to Right from the Author. You know, it's been nearly 13 years since JonBenet Ramsey was murdered in Boulder, Colorado. Tonight we'll discuss her case with my partner Jeff Hansen and Dr. Cyril Wecht. It's all on Right from the Author now. Welcome to another installment of Right from the Author. I'm joined by Jeff Hansen, Taylor police officer and author. I'm Joe Cochran, and momentarily we'll be joined by Dr. Cyril Wecht. I've been in contact with a lot of people in the Boulder, Colorado area this week. I've talked to prosecutor's office, I've talked to lawyer's office, and I've talked to a lot of people. It looks like this case is going to be reopened. They have a new prosecuting attorney who's been here less than 2 years, and it looks like this case is going to be reopened. Jeff Hansen, I come over to you, police officer. In a minute or so, your thoughts as a police officer and a father of 4 daughters when you hear of a case like this and all the shenanigans that seem to have went on. You really got to be thinking, what the heck's going on in Colorado?
When I remember this, I had just got out of the academy. I married in November of '96, got out of the police academy in November of '96. This happened a month later, Christmas Day. I can't imagine being a parent and thinking that this happened in my own household, and the horrific, I mean, this is just one of the most shocking tragedies I can think of in the past, how many years I've been a police officer. It's really something else. And
the investigation seems to be more shenanigans than went on in the O.J. Simpson case.
Right. I mean, from the get-go, when you have the parents there trying to say that, you know, the ransom note and then her body was found and all the different things that were going on with the case, and then they hire a lawyer. When innocent people usually don't hire lawyers, that's just one of the things that sticks out to you, that what was going on in these folks' mind. They're very well off. They have a house in Michigan. They had a house in Michigan, northern Michigan, nice. And John Ramsey is very wealthy man.
Running for office here in Michigan right now. He was defeated a couple years ago, and I heard he's thinking about running another up in Charlevoix.
Right.
Is where they're from. And we'll bring in Dr. Cyril Wecht. Cyril, I talked to you several times this week as we look at a photo of John Ramsey talking about his innocence, it looks like here on the screen. Cyril, you are very passionate about this case. You wrote Mortal Evidence. You also have a book, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey. Let's go back to the night of the actual crime, when the crime scene was completely destroyed.
Well, yes. And by the way, before I address that, I want to add something to a point that Jeff made, which I think is a very salient feature about this case. Not only did the parents have a lawyer within 24 hours, but each of the parents had their own lawyer. Yeah. Now, Jeff, as a policeman, knows what that means. And when the 2 parents, you have your daughter that's been murdered. First of all, well, what do you need a lawyer for? You know, and I'm a lawyer too, and so you know, I'm not anti-lawyer, but you know, there are times I don't need a lawyer. If you know, I got 11 grandchildren now. One of them's found dead in my home. I need a lawyer. No. And does my wife need a separate lawyer? Come on now. And not only a lawyer, but the most politically well-connected lawyer in the state of Colorado, a guy who had been Senator Gary Hart's right-hand man. So I just wanted to make that observation to lay the foundation here. Now, with regard to the so-called crime scene, yeah, it was the story that Patsy Ramsey tells is this. She says that she got up in the morning at about 5:30. It was on Christmas Day, as Jeff said, and they were going to be heading in a private plane for their place up in Michigan. I guess your neck of the woods, farther north, I think. And she comes down at 5:30, and she sees a piece of paper resting against a step, diagonally standing up. She gets the paper and she reads it, and it appears to be a kidnap note. She begins looking around, goes to JonBenet's room and her brother Burke's room and the house, and then at 10 to 6, they call the police. The police are there at 6 o'clock in the morning, this is now, and the police search search the house, and there's no JonBenet. 7 hours later, at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, guess what? John Ramsey, joined by his then best friend, Fleet White, also a multi-millionaire businessman who came on to be the worst possible enemy that John Ramsey could have ever envisioned, taking out full-page ads, in essence accusing John Ramsey of killing his daughter. Fleet White, with John Ramsey, they go downstairs to the basement, and they go into a room that the police had not looked into, a room that a maid who worked there for a whole year never knew existed for 7 months. But this outside intruder, he knew about this room. And Fleet White has stated, he's on record as saying, that before the light switch was fully on, John Ramsey, with the door being swung open, was uttering an exclamatory fashion, "Oh my God, there's my daughter." She's covered with a blanket. John Ramsey takes the girl with the blanket, carries her upstairs, places in the living room. There's a Christmas tree there, and then this is now a little bit after 1 o'clock. The coroner is called, and the coroner doesn't get there until 8 o'clock that evening, and he talks with some police officers outside for 20 minutes, goes in at 8:20, and spends 10 minutes, and at 8:30 p.m. he's out of there, and the autopsy is done the next morning. So this is the background. I'll stop here and give you guys a chance to pipe in.
Well, first of all, two points I'd like to make. When, as Jeff had eloquently said, who starts lowering up? You're saying, hey, go get the guy who possibly could have done this and got into my home. You're not going to start running behind a lawyer. You're going to look for a prosecutor to take over, find out what's going on here. And second of all, what really puzzled me, Cyril, and again, you might have to have a psychiatrist do this, who wants to leave the state and go to Georgia, and their daughter is still in the morgue, the funeral hasn't even been, and they're leaving the state?
Yeah, well, you're quite right. But, and those are very important features. I do agree with you. And the whole psychological profiling. But let's go back for a moment, things that Jeff can really appreciate. There is a dead girl in a home, a 6-year-old child, and at that point, there's no evidence, and since then there hasn't been either, and at that point, no evidence of any outside intruder or anything, no break-in, and the mother and father are not separated and interrogated individually, separately, by different homicide detectives. Now, I'll throw that ball over to Jeff. How is a murder? The girl's murdered, okay? So we no question about that. I mean, this is an unnatural death, and you've got the 2 adults there. Just the only other inhabitant is a 9-year-old brother. Now, Jeff, tell me if I'm wrong. Do homicide detective Joan, Mr. A, say, Mr. Ramsey, would you come? I'd like to talk with you in the kitchen. And Mrs. Ramsey, would you be so kind as to go with my colleague, homicide detective B, into the living room? You'll be more comfortable and talk with you. And you begin to take statements. That was never done.
Yes, sir.